Welcome to a deep dive into something that, well, it touches every single part of our lives, doesn't it? Our economies, our planet's health.
Water.
Absolutely fundamental.
We hear so much about water scarcity, and yeah, it sounds pretty serious, grim even.
It is serious.
But what if that term scarcity is really just, scratching the surface? What does it actually mean for a place, a country, or us globally to be water secure?
That's the key question. Is it just about having enough H2O? Or is it, well, more complicated?
Much more, I suspect. Today, we're digging into a really interesting 2016 research paper. It's by Animesh K. Gain and his colleagues, called Measuring Global Water Security Towards Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, it's a great piece. It really pushes us to think bigger.
It really does. It sort of broadens the whole picture of water challenges, moving beyond just, volume.
Exactly. So our mission today is to help you, our listeners, get a handle on this bigger picture. What is water security, really? Why is it so much more complex than just how much water falls from the sky or flows in a river? And how does it all connect to those big global sustainability goals?
Precisely. We'll unpack a framework they developed to measure this critical issue across the globe.
Okay, let's get into it. Water. Clearly vital. We all know that. Society, ecosystems, everything depends on it.
Can't live without it.
But there's that famous line, right, from Coleridge. Water, water, everywhere, nor any drop to drink.
Haunting, yeah.
And it perfectly captures this global problem, doesn't it? It's unevenly spread out, and often the quality is just not good enough.
Exactly. It's not just if there's water, but where it is, and importantly, what condition it's in. That's crucial.
So, historically, how did we usually look at this?
Well, for a long time, the main lens was water scarcity. Pure and simple, or maybe not so simple.
Yeah.
It usually broke down into a couple of types. You had demand-driven scarcity, often called water stress. That's like when the amount withdrawn is more than, say, 40% of what's actually available, puts a strain on the system.
Right, using too much.
And then there's population-driven scarcity, or water shortage. Think less than 1,000 cubic meters per person per year.
Okay, those sound like useful metrics.
They are. They highlight immediate pressures. But, and this is a big but, the paper points out they're often poorly integrated with what policymakers actually need.
How so?
They tend to overlook the human dimensions. Things like, social structures, institutional capacity. Can the community actually manage its water well? These traditional views are just a bit too simple for the messy reality.
So focusing only on volume, on scarcity, misses a huge chunk of the problem, like why people can't access it or why it's polluted.
Exactly. If you only see a lack of water, the solution might seem obvious. Build a dam, drill more wells.
Right, the engineering fix.
But if the real issue is bad governance or no sanitation infrastructure or widespread pollution, well, a new dam isn't going to solve that. That's why this broader concept of water security emerged. It's more comprehensive, more actionable.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting for me. If scarcity was too narrow, how does water security widen the lens? What's the definition we're working with?
It's a really powerful one, actually. Gray and Sadoff defined it back in 2007. They said water security is, let me get this right, the availability of an acceptable quantity and quality of water for health, livelihoods, ecosystems, and production.
Okay, quantity and quality makes sense.
Coupled with an acceptable level of water-related risks to people, environments, and economies.
Ah, risks. That's a key addition.
Huge. It's not just about having enough good water. It's also about being safe from water-related disasters. Floods, droughts, contamination events.
So acceptable quantity, acceptable quality, and acceptable risk.
Exactly. It's a three-legged stool, in a way. And ensuring this, the paper calls it one of the major challenges of the 21st century.
I can see why.
And the UN agrees. Their Sustainable Development Goal 6, SDG 6, is all about ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all by 2030.
It really shows how central water security is to, well, everything else. That definition really packs a punch. What's the bit people usually overlook?
I think it's definitely that risk component. Most folks think security means enough, having enough water.
Yeah.
But being secure also means not having too much at the wrong time, like a flood, or not having water that makes you sick. It's about predictability, safety, resilience, not just volume.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if it's this complex, multifaceted thing, how on earth do you measure it globally? What did Gain and his colleagues actually do in this paper?
Right, that's the challenge they tackled. They introduced this spatial multi-criteria analysis framework, MCA.
Sounds technical.
It is a bit, but the concept is straightforward. They created something called the Global Water Security Index, the GWSI.
GWSI, got it.
And the key thing is, it's not just one single number representing everything. It breaks water security down into 4 crucial pillars or criteria.
4 pillars.
This gives a much more detailed, nuanced picture of where a country stands, its strengths, its weaknesses.
And I guess digging into those 4 pillars is where we see why it's so much more than just rainfall. What's the first one?
Absolutely. Pillar number 1 is water availability. This one feels the most familiar, right? It tackles that acceptable quantity aspect.
Like the traditional scarcity metrics.
Sort of, but it goes deeper. It includes things like the Blue Water Scarcity Index, WSI, that measures withdrawals against what's really available after considering what the environment needs. Environmental flows.
Ah, important. Often forgotten.
Very often. It also looks at groundwater depletion. Are we sucking aquifers dry unsustainably? And it includes a drought index to assess hydrological droughts. So it's a richer picture of just physical water supply.
And what do they find for this pillar? Where are the big issues?
Well, the assessment really highlights places like India, China, parts of the U.S., and many African nations. They face significant availability challenges.
with dry climates.
It's a mix. High water demands, often from agriculture, growing populations, and yes, sometimes naturally dry environments. Get this, over 90% of the world's irrigated land is in these regions.
Wow, 90%. That's huge pressure.
Immense pressure. It shows that even major economies are hitting real physical limits. You can't just engineer your way out of having fundamentally stressed water resources indefinitely.
Okay, so pillar 1 is about having enough water physically there, considering the environment. What's next? Once you have it, you need to get it right.
Precisely. Pillar 2 is accessibility to services. Is the water that is available actually reachable and affordable for people and ecosystems?
Because available doesn't mean accessible?
Not at all. Think about it. Water in a deep, distant aquifer isn't accessible without wells and pumps. Water flowing past a village isn't accessible without safe intake and distribution systems.
So what are the indicators here?
Pretty fundamental ones.
Mhm.
Access to improved sanitation and access to safe drinking water, usually measured as the percentage of the population covered.
And the findings.
Stark contrasts. Much of Africa still struggles massively with providing safe drinking water and basic sanitation. Huge public health implications. Meanwhile, developed nations, US, Canada, Australia, Europe, generally have near universal access. A massive global divide.
So water might be physically present, but if people can't get it safely or affordably, it's still a crisis. Okay, pillar 3 must be about quality.
You got it. Pillar 3 is safety and quality. This makes sure that the water people can access is actually safe to use, and also that the area is relatively safe from water-related risks, like floods.
So clean water and flood safety rolled into one.
Kind of. The indicators reflect that. There's a water quality index, WOQI, looking at chemical and biological purity, and there's a flood frequency index.
Where's the water quality good and where's it bad?
Generally high quality in places like Scandinavia, Canada, New Zealand, often places with strong regulations, maybe lower population density. Quality tends to be lower in parts of Africa and the Middle East, often due to lack of wastewater treatment or industrial pollution.
And floods.
Floods are a global problem. It's not just a developing world issue. Think about major floods in Europe, the US, Australia. Developed infrastructure can actually mean higher damage costs when floods do happen.
Right. So it's about having enough, but not too much, and making sure it's clean. Okay, that leaves the 4th pillar. What pulls it all together?
This one's critical. Management. This is where the human element really comes in, the social and institutional side.
The governance.
Exactly. Water planning, institutional capacity, the effectiveness of governance systems. How well are decisions made? Are rules enforced? Indicators here include the World Governance Index.
What does that cover?
It's broad. It looks at things like voice and accountability, political stability, government effectiveness, regulatory quality, rule of law, control of corruption. Basically, how well the country is run.
Okay.
It also looks specifically at water governance, like the status of transboundary legal frameworks. How well do countries sharing a river cooperate? And it measures hydropolitical tension, the risk of conflict over shared water.
And the global picture for management.
The paper suggests governance is relatively weaker in many parts of Asia, Africa, and South America, which hampers effective water management. Developed countries generally score higher here.
Which really underlines that point. You can have plenty of rainfall, but if the management is poor, you won't have water security.
Precisely. Institutions matter just as much as infrastructure or rainfall, maybe more.
Okay, 4 pillars. Availability, accessibility, safety quality, and management. A really holistic view. So how did the paper combine all this into that Global Water Security Index, the GWSI? Just add up the scores.
No, it's a bit more clever than that. They used a method called ordered weighted average, or OWA.
Ordered weighted average. Okay.
Think of it like this. It doesn't just average everything equally. It applies weights. Some pillars, some indicators are considered more important. For example, availability gets the highest weight, 45%, because, well, you do need some water to start with.
Right, foundational.
But the OWA method is flexible. It lets them model different perspectives, like a pessimistic view that gives more weight to the worst performing pillar, or an optimistic one. This helps capture different policy angles when assessing the final GWSI score.
That's really smart. So what did the final GWSI maps show? When they put it all together, were there surprises?
Definitely. The maps clearly show, as you might expect, very low water security scores across large parts of Africa and Asia, reflecting the challenges in access, quality, management we talked about.
Okay, not too surprising there.
But here's the kicker. Areas known for high physical water scarcity, think parts of the U.S., Australia, Southern Europe, they actually scored better on the overall GWSI.
Wait, hang on. Less physical water, but better water security. How does that work? That sounds totally backwards.
It does seem paradoxical, right? But it perfectly illustrates the difference between simple scarcity and comprehensive security.
Okay, explain the paradox.
It's because those regions, while physically dry, excel in the other pillars. They have incredibly strong management systems, robust infrastructure, ensuring accessibility, high standards for safety and quality, and effective governance.
So their strengths in management, access, and quality actually compensate for the lack of physical abundance.
Exactly. They've essentially built security through good governance, technology, and institutions, even where nature didn't provide vast amounts of water. It proves that water security is something you create, not just something you have.
That is a really powerful insight. Can you give us some specific country examples to make it concrete?
Sure. Let's look at Bangladesh. Physically, it's water-rich, huge rivers, monsoon rains.
You'd think high security.
But no, very low GWSI score. Why? Massive challenges with extreme floods, widespread arsenic contamination in groundwater affecting millions, and really complex, often tense transboundary water issues with India over shared rivers. The water is there, but it's often unsafe, unpredictable, or poorly managed across borders.
Okay, so abundance doesn't equal security. What about somewhere like India?
India is a case study in multifaceted challenges. Yes, there's blue water scarcity in places. But beyond that, huge issues with lack of access to safe water and sanitation for hundreds of millions. Groundwater is being depleted at alarming rates, just disappearing. Frequent droughts, major water quality problems from pollution, and significant governance and management hurdles. They're fighting battles on almost all the pillar fronts simultaneously.
A really tough situation. And the contrast, you mentioned Australia.
Right, Australia. Driest inhabited continent, large deserts, yet it scores much better on the GWSI.
Because of management.
Exactly. They have highly advanced water management, sophisticated irrigation, strong laws, universal access to safe water and sanitation, even in remote areas. They've invested heavily in adapting to scarcity and managing their resources effectively. It shows what's possible with focus and good governance.
Okay. And how confident are we in these scores? Did the researchers look at, the uncertainty in the model?
They did. It was good scientific practice. They tested different ways of combining the data, those different OWA approaches we mentioned. They found that the pessimistic approach, the one emphasizing the weakest links, generally gave lower, more cautious scores.
Which makes sense for policy, right? Better to be cautious.
Probably yes. If you want to identify potential vulnerabilities and be risk-averse, focusing on the weakest pillar gives you a more prudent warning signal. It adds confidence that the GWSI isn't painting an overly rosy picture.
So wrapping this part up, what's the big takeaway? It really feels like this research fundamentally shifts our understanding.
I think it does. It drives home that water problems aren't just about the amount of water in a river or lake. It's this incredibly complex web, physical availability, yes, but woven together with access, safety, quality, and crucially, how we manage and govern it all.
It's the whole system.
The whole system.
Yeah.
And understanding that system is vital if we want to make progress.
So connecting this back to those global goals, how does this GWSI help?
Well, it's more than just an academic index. It offers a really valuable tool for tracking progress towards SDG Goal 6, the water goal. It gives a much richer, more multidimensional view than just looking at scarcity numbers.
And did the paper offer solutions, strategies based on these pillars?
Yes, absolutely. They laid out key strategies tied directly to each pillar. For availability, it's things like boosting agricultural water productivity, more crop per drop, improving irrigation efficiency, increasing water storage smartly, reservoirs, but also natural wetlands, and maybe even using desalination where it makes sense environmentally and economically.
Okay, practical steps. What about accessibility?
For accessibility, it's about strengthening public health efforts, promoting simple, effective home water treatment, improving hygiene practices, basic things that save lives, supporting organizations like the WHO in these efforts.
Makes sense. And quality and safety.
There, the need is for better quality and safety standards, maybe international guidelines and much stronger global monitoring. We need to know what's in the water, plus better flood and drought risk management, of course.
And finally, management, the crucial one.
For management, it's about building institutional capacity, helping transboundary river organizations work together better, reducing conflict potential, and generally improving governance across the board, accountability, stability, fighting corruption that often plagues the water sector. These are big systemic changes needed.
They sound fundamental. It requires political will, investment.
Huge amounts of both. But the framework shows where the effort needs to go.
This whole conversation really transforms how I think about water. It's not just turning on the tap, it's this intricate system behind it.
It is.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you, our listeners. Knowing now that water security isn't just about volume, but this complex mix of availability, access, quality, safety, and management. These four pillars, how does that change the way you think about water? Does it change how you view water use in your own life? Or the water issues in your local community? Or even those big headlines about global development goals. Maybe next time you hear about a drought or a flood, or even just use water at home, you'll see it through this wider, more interconnected lens. It certainly gives you a new appreciation for one of Earth's most precious and complex resources.